On solving simple equations. Just notice something, by the way, you can ignore, which is this right here. But maybe you shouldn't ignore my pug Charlie, who actually, he is always here when I teach my lessons, but right now you might hear him snoring in the background. He actually doesn't look like this at all. He's sleeping. So what is our goal today? Well, I say it's to find x, and x is a variable. X is almost always the variable we use. You've seen that already. It doesn't have to be x, but that's what we're doing. We're finding x. So first, the vocabulary, the language we'll use. If I say equation, it's just I call it a math sentence or statement, and what it means is these two things are equal. So here, the key part of an equation, the thing that has to be there for an equation to be true, is the equal sign. Okay, so it means that these things over here is equal to these things over here. And a solution to an equation is what is x, so that can be true. I can only say this is true if x is equal to one thing, right? Because if x is equal to, I don't know, 1, for example, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. That would be this side of the equation. This side would be 2 times 1, which is 2 minus 5. That would not be equal. That would not be a solution. So when I say solution, it's figuring out what value of x makes it true. And this is the very simplest example, x, some number, plus 2 equals 5. So what makes that true? Well, if x is equal to 3, then that statement is true. Therefore, x equals 3 is the solution. So that's when I say solution. That's most often the language we use. I'll show you later on another term that gets used, and you'll see a lot in the grade 10 course. It is important to understand opposite operation. It is the key to solving equations, is using opposite operations. And just knowing that the opposite operation, if something is being added to something else, the opposite operation is subtract, and vice versa, and the opposite operation of multiply is divide. The other thing is when I say root, root is just another word for solution. I don't use that word very much, particularly in this course. I don't think it's that relevant, but sometimes I think the textbook questions will use the term root, and that's all they're saying. If they say find the root, it just means find the solution. Same thing. You can worry about root more in the grade 10 course with parabolas. Okay, moving on. So the key, the thing with solving equations is what I have in red at the top. If you do something to the right-hand side of your equation, you have to do the same thing to the left-hand side of the equation. If you don't, the equation is no longer true. Okay? So when I say solving simple equations, right? Let's just find x. That's all it means. Solving means find x. So things that we need to do is we need to get x by itself. To find out what it is, it has to be sitting, usually on the left-hand side of the equation. It's by itself. So you end up with a statement that says x equals blah. And the way that you do it is you use opposite operations. Okay? So over here, this is my equation, and I'm sure 99.9% of you have already solved for x in this particular equation. You don't need to be a brain surgeon. I don't just mean by copying what I did. I mean, in elementary school particularly, you solve equations using, it's called inspection. And it's a great way to solve equations. There's nothing wrong with it. What it means is, you could also say guess and check, but you just look at it and say, oh, what makes this true? Well, if x is 5, 5 minus 5 is 0, so that's the solution. It's got to be. Absolutely, that's an okay way to do it. However, when the equations get harder, as they're going to in grade 9, and solving equations is something you do your whole high school career. Hopefully I'll see you in physics class and you'll be solving equations in physics. If they're too hard, you can't do inspection. It's just they're not nice and simple like this. So if you're doing this question here on a test, if you're lucky enough to get this on a test, sure, you could use inspection. However, by the end of this unit, if you flip through your book and you see the stuff we're going to do, you can't do inspection anymore. So I'm going to show you opposite operations on this easy example, right? And just so that you keep that strategy up. And it's not that hard. You can solve anything as long as you keep using opposite operations, follow the same steps all the time. Anyway, so just going, overkill on this question then is me saying, okay, I want to get x by itself, right? I need to get x alone. To get x by itself, I use opposite operation. I gotta get rid of this 5. Well, if I add 5 to both sides, it's subtracted over here, so I use the opposite operation and I add it to each side. I have to do it on the left and the right. And so x minus 5 plus 5 is just x plus 0, or just x, right? Minus 5 plus 5 is 0. And on this side, 0 plus 5 is just 5. Now I have my solution. Okay? Let's look at a different example, another what we call simple equation. Here, we have 4x equals 12. 4 and x are multiplied. So you always look at what's going on with the x, on the x side of the equation. On the x side of the equation, it's a multiply, 4 times x. So to get x by itself, I do the opposite operation. I divide by 4. So I divide both sides by 4, then it's kind of like as soon as I do that, 4 over 4 is just 1, right? So these 4's cancel, right? And then over here, I got 12 over 4, which is 3. So those are simple ones. Let's do, I think we have a few more simple ones to do. Oh, 2 steps, say still simple. I know you've done these in elementary school. But here already you can see it's a little harder just to, you maybe guess and check you could do, but you couldn't just look at it and come up with an answer right away. I can't, and I've done these a million times. But you just follow now, you just keep following what we call it an algorithm. In computer science, you call it an algorithm. It's just a series of steps. So the first step is collect the like terms, and that means I use opposite operations to get all the just numbers on one side of the equation and all the just x's on the other side of the equation. Okay, so here I've got, I have a just number, which is the 6, but I have an x term here. So I'm going to use the opposite operation, which is subtract 6, to get rid of that 6. So because 2x plus 6 minus 6, 6 minus 6 is 0, right? So I end up with on this side of the equation, just 2x. And over here, I have 18, because I have to subtract. I did it on the right, I got to do it on the left, I did it on the left, I have to do it on the right. Here I got 12. Okay, so that ends up 2x over 2x equals 12. And now I use opposite operation again to get x by itself. 2 and x are multiplied, so divide both sides by 2. Those 2's cancel. I end up with x equals 6. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay? Moving on. This is just a weird one. This is actually so easy, it's not funny, but it's one that gets kids a bit thrown off. When you have just negative x, or negative anything, equals 12, first of all, knowing that negative x is the same as, is what I have written over here, negative x equals, that's supposed to be an equal sign, negative 1 times x. So the 1 is implied. And so because of that, to get x by itself, you have to divide both sides by negative 1. Negative x, that's negative 1x over negative 1 is just x. 12 over negative 1 is negative 12. Okay? This is certainly one you can do by inspection, but like I say, sometimes just that one throws kids off a lot, I find. That's why I put the example in. Another little example here, exact same as the top example. I have 3x minus 1. I want to get, first step is to get all the x's on the left side of the equation, all the just numbers on the right. So that's minus 1, so opposite operation is plus 1. So I add 1 here as well as adding 1 here. And that leaves me with 3x equals 12. Last step, 3 is multiplied by x, divide both sides by 3. X equals 12 over 3, or 4. Okay? Okay, so that's it for this lesson, today's lesson. You can put that away now and start working on those questions related to solving easy equations tomorrow in class. See you then.